Hello and welcome to another Victoria 3 video. This time we're going to be taking a look at the fourth developer diary for the game, talking all about goods. But before we get onto that, we have here the Twitter teaser from yesterday posted by Martin Anward over on his Twitter account. We're going to be looking at coal, and we can see what coal is produced by. Unsurprisingly, coal is produced in a coal mine. Which makes absolute sense. We can also see what it is used on, or where the coal is used, and it's used in a vast number of different industries, from shipyards to iron mines to even coal mines themselves require a bit of coal, to maize farms, motor industries, all that good stuff, which makes absolute sense. Coal is incredibly useful and it is used pretty much everywhere. Martin also clarified on Twitter that there is a good reason that coal can be used by coal mines, but we'll get more into what that is when we talk about production methods and automation. There's another clarification I want to make as well. If we go back here, these numbers, the green numbers, there was a lot of speculation on what those mean, and without even having to look at the dev diary, it was answered by Kaiser Johann. It shows the number of states where you can build this building. The factories can be built in any state, except shipyards require coastal states, but the resource buildings that require that resource to be present. So if we have a look at this, there are 30 states in which Britain can create a tooling workshop, 29 where they can create a shipyard, only 12 where they can create a rye farm, etc, etc. Apparently, there is nowhere that you can build an urban centre, which makes sense because urban centres we know are not manually created. They pop up dynamically as soon as you get 100 urbanization in a state. So it's good to see that, you know, how these numbers are applying. So it's quite nice. It's very nice indeed. Now, with all that Twitterness out of the way, of course there will be a link to this tweet in the description below if you would like to go and look at that. Let's get on to the dev diary itself. So, happy Thursday and welcome back to yet another Victoria 3 dev diary, this time on the subject of goods. Goods are a core and economic feature of Victoria 3, just as they were in previous Victoria games, and come in a wide variety of types. Also, as in previous Victoria games, the manufacturing of goods by pops in buildings, and these are links to the previous dev diaries on those, is how the vast majority of the wealth in Victoria 3 is created. Fundamentally, a unit of goods represent a quantity of a certain type of natural resource, manufactured good, or intangible service, and come attached with a price tag. This price varies both in base, like a single unit of tanks is pricier than a single unit of fabric, and in actual market value as the price of goods change depending on supply and demand. And you may think, well, why? Of course not all goods cost the same amount. But the most recent game to feature a trade system would be Imperator Rome, and when that game was released, all the trade goods did actually have identical prices. That has since changed, but it's nice to just clarify, yeah, no, goods have, there's actually some mechanics and some depth to the trade system and the goods in the game. They're not just, it's not just all the same price. So that's nice. I'm not sure if it was necessary, but it's nice anyway. So you can see a selection of goods that are bought and sold in the British market. So those are the different goods. These are the prices. So fabric, we've got lumber, we've got fish. Bells, no idea what bells are, but I think we already know that urban centers create bells. I think that's right. Sure, bells. Coal, some kind of meat. We've got paper, perhaps. I think that's paper. We have clothing. Not sure if this is luxury or common clothing. Not sure. Incense, perhaps, fruit, tools, and basic consumer goods, I imagine, basic foods. Looks like a sausage, cheese, sausage, cheese, and maybe a yogurt. I don't know what that's supposed to be. I suppose maybe we'll find out. There are 4 broad categories of goods. We've got staple goods, luxury goods, industrial goods, and military goods. Is that color-coded then? Is green a staple good, purple a luxury good, This yellow one could be an industrial good, and there are no military goods in this list. Although, if I was to guess, it's going to be red. I'm going to guess red. But it'd be nice if that is the case and they're color-coded. That's quite nice. Of these, staple and luxury goods are mainly consumed by pubs, and industrial military goods are mainly consumed by buildings. But there are no hard rules here. You will find buildings using luxury goods and pubs purchasing industrial goods when and where it makes sense for them to do so. Staple goods are everyday goods that pubs need to live, such as food to eat, wood to heat their homes, and clothes to wear. Staple goods tend to be purchased in vast quantities by poor and middle-class pubs, with richer pubs generally eschewing them for luxury variants. So we have grain here. We've got a lovely little bar graph showing the market price over time. I like that. I'm definitely a fan of that. I would prefer a bit more granularity. Just some spikes on there, just to. I mean, I don't know if you can see that, but there kind of is. It's a little less visible than I'd like. And also, tell me what date this spike is at. Not a clue. You can see how much you're selling, how much you're buying. That's not bad. I like it. That's pretty cool. You can show the potentials on the map. You can show production on the map. You can show the consumption on the map. So changing the map mode for an individual good, I love that. That's really nice to see. Lovely stuff. It's slightly cheaper. Is it slightly cheaper than the world's average? Or is it... I think maybe grain in the British market is slightly cheaper than in the world. Lower than the average, perhaps. That could be the case. I'm not sure. Luxury goods now are things that pubs do not need necessarily, but definitely want, such as fine foods, luxury drinks like tea and coffee, or fine clothes made from Chinese silk. Luxuries tend to be more profitable to produce than staple goods, but they depend on having a customer base with money. A poor factory worker isn't going to be buying a whole lot of mahogany cabinets. So we have porcelain as a luxury good. It is produced either in the glassworks ceramics or glassworks bone china. Okay. They both look like the same building. I think it's just produced in glassworks, but it's got two different things. I'm not sure why that is. Interesting though. It's consumed by pubs of wealth levels 15 to 99. I assume that is their living standard level. If we go back up to pops a second, we can have a look at that. Because I'm sure we had living standards in here. Nope, maybe it wasn't in there. Maybe it was in buildings. I want to check this out. If it's not in buildings, I'm not going to go any further, though. Yeah, there. Is this what we're looking at here? Is this the level of standard of living? And we're looking at levels 15 to 99. Porcelain is bought. So middling and secure would be able to buy porcelain, but the struggling pops at 8 there would not be. That's a possibility. That is a possibility. Maybe. Onto industrial goods. They're goods such as iron, coal, rubber, and lead, whose main purpose is often to be converted into other more profitable goods. Securing a steady supply of vital industrial goods is crucial to industrialization and growing the GDP of your country. So in the Swedish market, tools are maybe slightly more expensive, if that is what that means. You can see the market price is fluctuating on the high area. Actually, how was... we didn't have a graph for the porcelain because we're on usage, we're not on British market. That makes sense. You can see how much the Swedish market is selling. We can see how much they're buying. Prices. I like it. It's a pretty easy to read little UI there. It's not bad. Not bad at all. So, onto military goods. There are goods such as small arms, ammunition, and warships that are used by military buildings to arm and supply the armies and navies of the 19th century nations. The more technologically advanced the army or navy, the more complex and expensive military goods they will need. So, soldiers tend to perform better if they're given ammunition for the guns. Someone should inform Russia about this. So we've got a munition plant. There's different production methods. It's used by the barracks and the naval base. And also I would hope to supply armies that you already have in the field. to, you know, resupply and rearm and do that kind of way. I would assume that would be the case. I would hope that would be the case. But maybe it's only showing buildings, though it's... hopefully that's the case. We'll be returning to the topic of goods in later dev diaries when discussing related mechanics such as markets, pop needs, goods substitution, and cultural obsessions. But for now, I bid you adieu for a while, as next week, Mikhail will provide you a new dev diary about something we've been teasing for some time now, production methods. So that's these. We don't know what they are yet. We're about to. Oh god, I wish there was more information. I feel like it was kind of half a dev diary. I think there was definitely more to be said on goods. Especially after we had this dev diary on buildings and say, oh, we're going to talk about this thing, but we'll do it in the next dev diary. I don't know. I just feel like maybe there was more to be said. And I feel like this just, you know, it's a very short diary. It is a very short diary. This is nice, having the comment there to collate the developer responses. Unfortunately, he hasn't done any of that yet. So let us manually show only dev responses and see if there are any. Simply looking at the variety of staples, it seems like Victoria 3 will be able to much more closely reflect the variety of and competition in international trade in the area. Do non-food staples have luxury variants, or are there some staples that rich pops will consume equally or in greater amounts than poorer pops? There's luxury furniture, a luxury variant of furniture, and I would assume luxury clothing is a luxury variant of regular-ass clothing, just like in Victoria 2. That seems kind of obvious. Okay, moving on. What's the difference between silver and gold coins? The coins tell you how expensive a good is in relation to the base price in that particular context, so market, state, region, etc. This way you can, for instance, see quickly at a glance that your steel factory is having trouble because the steel it's producing has a very low price. That is nice. That is very nice. Let me just reopen this dev diary. We're looking for the steel. They didn't actually show steel. Okay, so let's have a look here. Yeah, there's no steel on there. If it's a low price, I guess this bell is got a very low price, so you're not having a good time with that. But your clothes are making bank, so it's higher in relation to the base price. These tools. This is the British market, and we were looking at tools in the Swedish, weren't we? Yeah. The grain, it's slightly cheaper in the British market. Do we have grain on this list? You have to assume it's this one. Do you really, though? It's really hard to tell, because they're all from different areas. But that amount of coinage means it's slightly cheaper. A little bit more coinage, slightly more expensive. I suppose, once we get a handle on it and understand what there is, how to read it, then that would be nice. How many goods? Around 50, same as in Victoria 2. I think it was 46, 47 in Vicky 2. They may add more, they may remove some, who knows. Hopefully they add more. Will there be a way to subsidize certain goods so it'll be easier for pops to buy them? There are a number of ways you can interact with goods, more on that later. I feel like that could have been... I feel like this could have been in the dev diary about goods. How you interact with goods should be in the dev diary about goods. Right, that's not controversial to say, is it? At the moment, we don't have an ability to directly subsidize one particular good. There are other ways to lower the price of a good, though, such as subsidizing buildings, producing it, or importing it in greater quantities. I am a little bit iffy on that. So there's no way to lower the price of a good. I think there should be. I think there definitely should be, because we already know that if you want to use your is it influence? No, it's not influence. It's your bureaucracy. You can use your bureaucracy capacity to add tariffs on individual goods. Maybe you should be able to just go the other way in the same system and add subsidies for certain goods in that same way, and it would use some bureaucracy capacity. I don't know, maybe that could be a thing. It feels like that's a bit of an omission if it's not a thing. I mean, if you're going to put tariffs and subsidies are just two sides of the same slider. So I don't understand why it's not in at just as standard. It's weird. It's weird. It's certainly weird. What I really liked is the option to show on the map the potential production and consumption on the map. Yes. Hopefully Vic 3 will have more map modes than recent Paradox games. Yeah, recent Paradox games have been woeful for map modes. One thing I'd like to improve is that market price graph was more detailed in relation to values. I want it being more detailed in relation to, time. Something our UX designers put a lot of time into is showing contextual information, in this case by allowing you to see heat maps of production, consumption, and potential production while viewing a particular good. That is beautiful. I love to see that. You absolutely love to see it. It's extremely useful. It can tell you where you can get coal. That's beautiful. That's actually beautiful. Love it. That's what I'm living for. How moddable are goods? I'm assuming one can add or subtract goods as needed. What are some examples of what else can be done with the system? To give an example, we have a variety of different farms which all produce the grain good, but might vary in efficiency and have different secondary production methods. More on this next week. Okay. It wouldn't be hard at all for a modder to actually break these up into different goods which can all be used to fulfill pop needs according to what's locally available in the market. Okay, so next week we're talking about production methods. If your production method is just changing the type of grain that you're growing, that's kind of interesting. That is kind of interesting. Curious. I'm very curious. As is this guy. I'm curious, will services be considered goods that require pulp to be produced? Like, for example, the first picture, I thought the tools good was more like workforce. And no, why would it be? So what I mean is that you could have services that are considered luxury services like entertainment. At the moment, services is a single good that is non-tradable, meaning it can only be bought and sold locally. But it will be easy to split up into different kinds of tangible goods if we wanted to. Okay, I think they're probably still talking about modding. I was hoping to subsidize my bread so no one would go hungry or have to eat cake. Yes. You can do this by importing cheap foreign grain or subsidizing your agriculture. We did discuss having a way to subsidize goods, but we felt the mechanics we have did the same thing in more interesting ways. Subsidizing agriculture. No, I don't think it is the same thing. Like, agriculture is also your cattle ranches, producing beef. Agriculture is also cotton. Agriculture is also tea and coffee. Subsidizing agriculture as a whole, it makes no sense to me. You really do need to have that breakdown of, I'm subsidizing specifically the grain industry so that everyone can be fed, instead of I'm subsidizing everyone in the agriculture sector equally. So coffee and grain are cheaper. It's like, it makes no sense. They should totally be different things. I feel like they made a mistake here. Obviously, I'm not a dev. I haven't got the inside information, and maybe when playing it, they are right. But from an outside's perspective, I feel they've made a mistake. That's my gut reaction. Tractors are apparently a thing. Cool. Could we have an option instead to show the percentage of how unprofitable a good is, instead of just having silver and gold and maybe bronze as well, coin icon? Shouldn't be too many Vicky 3 players that don't like numbers and percentages and prefer pictures. Bronze, silver, gold is essentially that, but with an icon slapped on top of it. Should be trivial to replace with text in a mod. Okay. So the numbers 1 through 20 are this type of coin, and the numbers 50 through 65 are this type of coin. Yeah, I would say I'd probably prefer just a number and a percentage. That seems actually much better to me. Is there a limit to the number of goods that mods can add? It's painful working with a 64 limit on my regional market mod for Vicky 2. Strongly doubt there's a technical limit, at least not one so close to the base game number. Alright. Has the idea of more than one good per province ever been explored? No such limits in Victoria 3. A state can contain potentials for every single building in the game if you're inclined to create such a superstate. There is no such state in the game, but it would technically be possible in the systems we have. Yeah, we already know that you can have coal and iron and fish and lumber and oil and rubber and all this kind of stuff that can all be in the same state, and seemingly everything is built on the state level, just like factories are built on the state level as well in Vicky 2. So having more than one good per state is seemingly perfectly possible. It does bring up the question, and I think this was something that Nurse Reno brought up in a podcast he was recently on, that is basically if you have the coastline of your state occupied but the inland is not, are the fishing quarters, are these things here, are these fishing quarters, are they going to shut down but the iron mine will be fine because it's more inland? Is the system smart enough to recognize that not all parts of the state are equal? I don't know. But having more than one good per state is really good. Is there a limit to the number of goods that mods can add? No. I somehow thought all these different farms would produce different goods, though I guess it makes sense to keep things simple. The farms do differ in their potential production. It's just that they all produce some grain as their main good. So how are we gonna make a decision here on what is more valuable here? Let's go back up to the grain. Where? I think maybe it was in here. We saw a bunch of different types of grain. No, it was on here. Right, so wheat farms, rice farms, millet farms, rye farms. Like, what are the functional differences in how they operate? They have differing potential production. Is that how fast it grows, or how large you can make a farm, or the cost of the? If they're all producing grain as their output, I can only imagine, like, how is changing from rye to wheat going to impact things, other than, oh, you just make more or less grain? Are you going to be able to impact the price of the grain? Are you going to impact the desirability of grain to your pops? Is it just going to be a case of this area of the world is better for this type of grain, and therefore you're stupid to try and grow anything else? Is producing two different types of grain next to each other going to be good for the people in that area, as they now have more variety in their diet of grain? I can't understand how this is going to be impactful to the point where it's worth having multiple types. Because at the moment it's like, I can't. Maybe we'll see in the next dev diary what the differences really will be. But right now I can't think of anything that would be, oh yeah, this is totally necessary, because I'm coming up blank on it right now. Well, let's move on, I guess. Reminds me of the weird things that happen to markets when you load a Vicky 2 save. Whatever, something. At the current version of the game, the economy isn't fully initialized with all values until a few weeks in, much like in Vicky 2, though this is something we're working on and absolutely plan to have fixed for the eventual release version. It has to do with how many circular and interconnected events there are in the game. For example, a drop in grain price can lead to pops increasing their wealth level, which results in them buying more grain, which raises the price of grain again, which all needs to be properly accounted for during game initialization. I guess just give all the pops some grain to begin with. I don't know. But yeah, getting that thing fixed is nice, because you always had to wait about a month to see if your economy was actually garbage or good. Alright, and finally, do subsistence farm produce grain for sale in the market, or the profits abstracted as direct money generation? They produce small surplus which is sold in the market, but most of their labor is simply self-sustaining. Yeah, so just kind of reiterating what we learned in the last one. Alright, well, that is the dev diary on goods, and yeah, it was a bit of a strange one. There could certainly have been more information shared. These production methods, I'm still totally not... I'm not sold on. I don't know. But we're going to learn about them next week, so maybe I'll be sold then. So how about you let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let me know what you think of these production methods and what you think it might do. And then we'll see next week if any of us are right, or if we're all morons. We'll find out. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this dev diary. If you would like to see more of these, there's a playlist of all the previous dev diaries, and I'm going to be doing all of them in this same format. So if you liked it, hit the sub button, like the video, all that standard YouTube stuff. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.